copy of the slideshow for you to write notes on. I also put some post-it notes on the table, so if you think of an idea or a question that you have, just write it down, because sometimes it's not the time you want to ask, or you might want to ask one of the teachers at the end. So that's there for you just to write down questions as you think about it and as we go along. And of course, I'll answer questions all the way through as well. We have teachers in the back who will be answering questions at the end. Mrs. Schrader, who's first grade, Ms. Burkhart, who is kindergarten, Tina Cowden, who is second grade, and then Abby Gross, who is teaching sixth grade, but she's coming for both of our sessions tonight. Now, please come in. There's seats up here, and you're very welcome to find a place wherever it's convenient. So this is going to be mainly focusing on K through 3, and I'm going to quickly talk about the sorts of things to expect, the stages that children go through in each of these grade levels generally, but the progress, they'll either go faster or slower, but somewhere in there. And then things you can do at home to help support them through that. So the first thing, the first slide is something that really surprised me. One of the things that you'll see starting even in kindergarten and all the way through is please have your children read 15 minutes every night. And it doesn't sound like a lot, and it's easy to say, oh well, 15 minutes, what does it matter? And it makes a difference. So if they read 15 minutes a night, and by the time they're in second grade, they're going to be reading about 120 words a minute. Just on the side, our low bar for second grade is 90 words per minute. Almost every second grader is already reading 90 words per minute in this school. It's enormous, and this is at grade level, cold reading, no pictures. So they really are, by second grade, approaching this. They're reading 657,000 words a year. This is an enormous amount of practice. You don't have to teach them, you don't have to do anything, just that reading 15 minutes every night, supplying that in there is a huge amount of words per year. And even 80 words per minute, which is often what our first graders are reading by the end of the year, they're reading 438,000 words a minute. This is an enormous amount of practice, and it's really no effort. So the main thing with that that's helpful, and which is helpful for here through high school, what this does is it establishes a routine. If you can find that sweet spot time in your lives, every family's different, where they can do their homework, in this case 15 minutes of reading and whatever else the teacher has for you, and that becomes an established routine, and it's the same time most nights. That's a huge support for your student, and it will pay off in the upper grades because you're not having to negotiate anymore. So the younger you start that routine, the payoff comes later because that's just after dinner, that's just the time you do your homework. For most families, it's after dinner, before TV, before the bedtime routine. That's usually the sweet spot. When they come home from school, they're often tired, they need a snack, they need a break. But every family's different and every situation's different. So try to find that time, and most days they can have this 15 minutes at night, a little bit more when there's more expectations in the upper grades. The other thing that will support them, you're getting lists either of sight words or fry words home. What those lists are is someone, I assume his name is Mr. Fry, but I actually never looked it up to find out, looked at books, magazines, newspaper articles, and documented the most frequently seen words. The 600 words that they'll learn between now and 6th grade are 70% of the words in most texts. So when they learn those really fast and they don't have to think about it, they're only problem solving 30%, much less, of more difficult words. So it just makes reading easier to have that bank. So that's why the teachers in kindergarten, first, second grade are working so hard on those lists for your children. One of the things too, things that support reading in your home. Before I even come to this list, the biggest indicator of reading and the biggest help before school and throughout school are your conversations with your children. fascinating research is parents who are communicating with their children before school, reading a book, having a conversation where it isn't just go get the milk, but it's, what did you do today? I played on the playground. How did you play? These back and forth conversations are one of the key supports because it helps them predict what's normal and what's usual to have in a conversation or in a story. When I teach really young children in kindergarten, I give them this little oral test, and they just have to say the sentence back to me. The hardest sentence, be as quiet as you can when your father's asleep. They say it back. My aunt and uncle want to start building a new house. Sounds easy? A lot of them can't do it. They'll make little mistakes. And what I've found, and I have done this now for 15 years, I have found that the students who can say it back, even the complicated sentences, exactly, not that you want to practice this at home, this is just information, take on reading more quickly because they're listening more effectively. And so therefore, all the classroom instruction, they're listening. They can listen in a whole group, and then they can listen when they're the one-on-one. So all those conversations you're having with your children at the dinner table, whenever that's happening, in the car, captive audience in the car, those are all one of the strongest things to support your child in learning to read, learning to predict what's happening in books. Other things, this is all from research. Ready access to books. Having books in your house for them to look at, stack of library books, things that they can just grab. They're not on a high shelf where they can't reach them. But the number one thing for helping children to read is just having books. The second, interestingly enough, is that they have a choice. Now, this doesn't mean a choice of 5 million books. It can be, as I say, an educated choice. So if you're reading with your child at night, you can say, oh, do you want to read this book or this book? That's enough of a choice, enough power for them to choose that they get vested in it. They chose this one, therefore they want it. And the brain then clicks in to wanting to do it, and the cooperation increases tremendously just by having a choice between two things. So you can choose what's appropriate if it's between a couple of books, and you don't have to give them what you want to pick in your whole house, because then, you know, it's a half an hour coming back. So you can make it a little more timely by giving them a couple of choices. And then the third thing is good fit books. In kindergarten and first grade, that's a little bit harder to have in the home, because the good fit books are really simple books, and I'll talk a little bit more of that just have a few sentences on each page. You're not going to find these in the library. The library tends to start in early second grade. And the picture books are for grown-ups to read. The picture books are actually typically quite hard to read. Henry and Mudge, they can be an end of a first grade book. Father Bear, things like that. But most books in the library start at second grade. So when you're reading with your child, if they have these little books, if they have poems at home, if they have their fry words, read those with them. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later. And also, reading to them is enormous, because they're following the print, they're getting the structures. And then second grade is when the library opens up, and their doors are open to your child. So getting to that second grade reading level is where the whole world of books opens up for them completely. So good fit books, and there's on your table, and I'll come back to it, are some bookmarks that are ways of thinking about how to choose good fit books. So I'm going to quickly go through these here. Is that because I have it set for, oh, good. This is catered to. Good, thank you. Before kindergarten, before they even start to read, there's 3 ways children read a book. They can read the words, but before that, and it's very valuable, they can read the pictures. just looking at the pictures of every page and telling what's happening in the story is an enormous asset to children. Oh, oh. Yep, there it is. And then the second thing that happens when they're learning to read, there's all sorts of things you don't read. Oh, no. There's all sorts of things that happen when they're learning to read. For example, where's the cover? Where do I begin? Oh, I have to start up here. I have to go left to right. I have to go left to right and then come back here and go over here. And go to the bottom. I have to turn the page. I have to read this page before that page. Before they even read, there's a lot of things that have nothing to do with looking at the letters. And they have to get good at these things. When you read to them, they're learning this passively. By the time they come to school, if you've read with them, they already often have all of this. They also have to learn to point to each word. That one's really hard. Because what they'll tend to do, this says, I am looking for my grandma. And they tend to go, I am looking. Yeah. Of course, they've learned to point to each thing, and then they're having to realize, oh, some words are long, I have to hold on to those multiple syllable words. These books are beautifully designed and very research-based. Every book has something in it that they're trying to show the children. They've often sort of memorized it by the time they get home. But here, they're looking at something. One of them is, I see the monkey, I see the alligator, I see the hippopotamus. But instead of alligator, it's actually crocodile. And so they predict alligator from the picture, but then you have this teaching moment of talking about the word. So the books are very much scripted for the children. So 3 ways to read before they're even reading. Have them read the pictures. Have them retell the story afterwards, and then if they're reading the words, they can read the words. When they get on, oh, I needed you to come in, don't I? Excuse me. When they get in first grade, that's when they're going to be starting to take on other kinds of print. The books then are very repetitive. I see the red balloon, I see the blue balloon, I see the green balloon. Well, that's kindergarten. What they do there is they're starting to do books that have one change. There's a place at what I call level 3 and 4, and if you want to look at the books later, they're up here. So we have level 4 books here. That's where the children really have to read. They have to know enough sight words, and they have to build it up. Up until then, they can sort of memorize it. At that point, they can get stuck on level 3 and 4 for months. Just one. It is the first reading hurdle. And until they have some sight words, and until they're actually really looking, because they really don't think the print has meaning, they think it's in the picture. So until they're really looking at the words, they're not going to get past that level. Then once they actually start looking, and let's see, it's under parent workshops. There we go. Thank you. And how to read with your child at the top. Not the splash top screen. And then button. Thank you. So the thing here, we're trying to integrate so that they're getting meaning, syntax, and the letters together. They need to blend all of these cues to read. So the thing that I really cannot encourage or discourage enough, please don't cover up the pictures. The pictures really help. They need to think about the meaning. Don't cover up all the words and ask them to and point to a word to know unless it's a word you know they know. So you can do the, you can do on, you can do see, but don't have them do, you know, synthesis. Not that that would be a level 4 book. The reason is we can teach them how to read letters and sound out, but if that's the only way to learn, they will get, and I have seen it, into 3rd and 4th grade, they will read 120 words per minute with no mistakes. And I will ask them what they read, and they'll look at me like this. We don't want that. So they have to keep the comprehension piece in all along. They have to think about the picture. They have to think about how the story's moving. So we're weaving all of those things all together. As they go through the levels, well-designed books, the pictures become less and less helpful. That's where we are. And you can go, oh, here we go. Yay. So do not cover the pictures. They will tend to memorize the books, but that's okay as long as they're pointing. They're still learning. They're learning one-to-one match that I was saying about the multi-syllable words. And they're building up these sight words, harder sentences, and we're doing all of these things here synchronized beautifully and using all of those assets together. By the end, they're reading fairly complicated text. The pictures aren't going to help. Oh, they'll have pictures on every page, but the pictures don't tell you what the story is. And so don't worry about covering the pictures. The books take care of it, because the pictures they choose to put in there become less and less helpful as they go on. And the child is having to focus on the print more and more very naturally. So then the last one is fluent readers. So that's the next. Very good. Oh, yes, you can go back to the poetry. I forgot about that. I added that this year. Many of the teachers are giving poetry every night or several nights a week. This is extremely research-based, and it is a very powerful way of teaching fluency and getting children to read like readers quickly. And it helps extend vocabulary. They learn words they wouldn't see. They usually do some study with word families, so you have this huge connection with spelling. They start to learn rhyme in a fun way, this beautiful use of language, and again, the fluency, which we'll come back to, and of course it's fun. For those parents, how many parents have had poems coming home? Do your children like sharing them with you? Is it a big high point of the night? Success. I mean, there's nothing like success. This is something they can bring home every night, they're proud of, and they are learning a lot. As they go on, they're going to be rereading those too. Remember how when your child was 2 years old and they wanted the same book every night for months, and the same movie? Ours was Swiss Family Robinson. It's memorized by me. Every night, the same ones. It's because they're learning something from it. We're board stiff, but they're not. And so, like with the poetry, you've got to trust them on that. They're getting something from it. So even if they're reading the same poem, it may be that they have to feel success. When my son was in 2nd grade, they had the phonics books. These were so easy for him. But when he wasn't feeling secure in school, he always pulled his phonics book out. He pulled out the thing that he knew he was going to be good at. And so sometimes they need that feel-good. We all need it. They need that success in there. And so these poems, built-in success, built-in joy, built-in pat on the back, whoa, you wrote that story really well. So this is extremely powerful, cutting-edge teaching that is making a tremendous difference, and we've already seen it. Ms. Schrader and Mrs. McGarry both had tremendous growth that they can see in how many words per minute and what they're doing in class since they've started this, and then they do so many other wonderful things in class as well. So the next slide is really when they're becoming fluent, and on here, and this is your later level books. This is the end of 1st grade, beginning of 2nd grade, taking you on that journey. This is all happening naturally in the books. More words on a page, longer sentences, more variety of sentences, more variety of words, less repetition, smaller words, smaller spaces, less of a correlation between pictures and text. They're working on using meaning. This is the fun part. Then they look at the beginning letters, and they guess. And they might say pirate for pie, not a great choice probably, but at least it's the beginning letters. Then they look at the end letters. They skip the middles for a long time. Why? Because vowels are hard. They can guess the word usually accurately just by thinking about the meaning, look at the beginning, and checking the end. Then they do syntax. Of course, they don't know the word. Did it sound right? The last thing they look at, and it's often the middle to end of first grade, even second grade, sometimes third grade. The last thing they look at are the vowels because they're tricky. In first grade, they are doing all of this fast and automatic. Just to show you this, I love this slide. Can you read it? Is it hard? No. Not bad. You don't have to read every letter. So the sounding out is valuable, it works. But it is the most laborious way to figure out how to read. It's hard to read that way. You want to use everything else first and save the sounding out for when they're really stuck. And so, as you see, they're right. You don't need to read letter by letter. You can use your context to get through that. So, what you can do at home, I'll come to this, read a lot. Reread a lot. Over and over. Work on good fit books, and that's going to really start in second grade. Good fit. Do they want to read it? Remember the choice. They've got to want, it's a subject matter they want to do is great. Even between two books they sort of want to do is a choice. Second, can they read the first page and know most of the words? Can they read it at a reasonable pace? And here's the clincher. Can they tell you what it was about? They should be able to tell you something that that story is about. If any one of those four things aren't there, the book is a little too hard. As a reading recovery teacher, kindergarten, first grade teacher for 15 plus years, and here, and I'm seeing it in fourth, fifth, and sixth grade still, I was not convinced. I was told, but not convinced. And I'm one of these competitive types, you know, push them to the next level, push them to the next level. They did good enough. I guess I can't say a name, I'll call her Stephanie, taught me a lesson several years ago. She was a first grade student I had. Because I kept saying, well, they were almost good enough, I'm going to get them to the next level. I had reading groups, and she was in a level 5, and the next group up of students was like a 9. So there was this big gap. And I was just one teacher, I couldn't teach, I mean, I had to have small groups. I did individual as well, but I also had small groups. She started doing better. She was reading at a 6 or a 7, even an 8. I had a choice between putting her in the 9 group, which was a little too high, or keeping her in the 6 group. The 9 group had some rebel rousers in there that she really didn't get along with, and I knew it would not be happy for her. So I kept her in the low group. She skyrocketed, giving her easy books, a lot of them that she could read, and of course I was giving her other things. She made more growth than what I saw in students when I tried to push them to the harder ones. And this, I did not believe until I saw it, and I've seen it since then over and over and over again. So don't worry if they seem easy. They are still learning a lot. And that confidence, that success, this sounds like a teacher reading it, I'm laughing at the story, this is more powerful than stumbling reading. Repeat. This is more powerful than stumbling reading. I can't emphasize it enough because we all want our children to get there. Me too. And they get there faster through ease and success. You can also trust them. They're going to get bored with the easy books after a while. They're going to self-choose a little bit when they're ready. You can work with your teacher if you think that they're really stuck. They'll talk to you about that. They've seen it all. They know the stumbling blocks, and so that's there for them. When they're reading, you can relax and enjoy. Don't even necessarily try to fix it at first. Just, you're going to see they're going to make mistakes. If they really get stuck, you can help them with it or tell them the answer. Let them read and enjoy it. If they have a little book, let them read the full book. As a reading recovery teacher, first grade kindergarten, I would have them read the entire book. I'd be writing down everything they said. What kind of mistakes did I see? Okay. And then I would decide at the end one thing I wanted them to fix. Here's why. If you stop every time they make a mistake, you're doing half their work. You're telling them where the mistake is. So they're not self-monitoring. They're not figuring it out themselves. You're doing it for them. And if you fix every mistake, their heads are going to go down and they're going to hate doing it. If you wait to the end and say, wow, you did a really good job, find one thing they did well. Even if they read the right on every page and that was the only thing they did well, you just say, wow, you really nailed that the word. Show me it here. Show me it there. Hit what they did well. Say, you know, there's something you did funny on this one page, and I want to see if you can get it right, because I think you can. Look at the first letters, and think about the picture, and let's see if you can get it. And they always get it just like that. Wow, good job, done. The next time they read it, remind them that, remember how we fixed that one where you thought it was alligator, it was really crocodile? There was one other place in this book I didn't tell you about. I can see if you can find it. So then now they've got a mission. They're reading more carefully. They have an idea of what to look at. And then they're now responsible for finding out where the error is. And that's going to do more than anything to help them read. The other thing, this neat piece of research, I'm going to stand, I think the camera can see back here. Away from having children when you're on, I'm going to put you on camera. When you read, here's the child. When you read next to your child here in their ear like that, and they're holding the book like a lot of you do in bed or on the couch or whatever, there is this cool research that has shown, and they've done these brain things, that when you read in their ear there, the brain fires up differently and they are more receptive to what you're saying and learning how to read just by where you sit. I don't know where it comes from, but it's very much researched, and I thought that was really fascinating. So the couch thing that you're probably already doing, the bed thing that you're probably already doing, just that little bit helps. 3 things, or a couple things, will hold them up. One is accuracy. And I already talked about it. Don't interrupt, just let them go. Praise specifically, fix one error. Just one. Don't overwhelm them, praise them, go on, there's always another day. Make it happy, make them want them to be there. And then the other thing is fluency, which is when we want them to read very smoothly, accurately, and where the reading's automatic. This is the bridge. Until they can read at a pretty good pace, 98% accuracy. They used to say 90, wasn't high enough. They went to 95, wasn't high enough. The latest research is 98%. It has to be that automatic. Smoothly, 98% accuracy. We are watching all of this. We're taking notes. You don't have to, don't worry. But until they're doing that, where it's that automatic, their minds are focused on reading the words and not thinking about the story. Again, they did brain research, what the brain's doing. A different part of the brain is firing up when they're doing the decoding, when they're still having to work on sounding things out and what the word is. When that is free, when that is automatic, when that is gone from their plate and they can read like you put periods in without thinking about it, right? You don't think about where to put periods and question marks. When they're reading that easily, a whole other part of their brain starts working. And so until it's automatic, they can't think about the story. 2nd grade, which is starting to read chapter books, longer stories that are more complex. Julie B. Jones tend to be around 2nd grade. You have to be careful. Some are easier, some are harder. Believe it or not, Magic Treehouse books, which a lot of 1st and 2nd graders are trying, it's actually closer to a 3rd grade book, so you kind of have to watch and support them there wherever your child is ready. But they're starting to get into those higher books. What we found, and we just did this last week, they can read a story, and the short story, I think it was about hot dogs, wasn't it? I can't remember this film. Yeah. And then they had to tell us about it. They read it beautifully. They read it at 98 words per minute. They read it at 100% accuracy. And I said, what was it about? And they said, oh, it was apples. They said, apples. All right, well, it was about lots of different things about apples. Could be close. Picking apples and wax good. So they could only get the big idea. And what was in the story, and they could only say a couple things. So in 2nd grade, the big shift is now you're reading well, we've got the fluency down, hopefully, or we're working on it, and the accuracy, can you tell us about the story? And we're looking for things, and this will take all year, and it will take part of 3rd grade. But until they can do this next bit, it's harder for them to get to the deeper questions. So this is a story about someone who likes apples, and it's all the different ways you can make apples or cook apples. Then they have to retell. In the beginning, it talks about making apple pie. They made apple pie by cutting up the apples, blah, blah, blah. In the middle of the story, it talked about making applesauce, and I'm completely making this up because that wasn't the story, no. But at any rate, in the middle of the story is about making applesauce, and that's different because then you do X, Y, and Z. At the end of the story, it was about caramel apples and Halloween, and they have to be able to talk about each part in order. That's our goal, 2nd and 3rd grade. Developing fluency, read a lot. Your poems, there's lots of fun ways to do it. You can read it, they can read the same thing back. That way you're getting this model of what it sounds like, how it sounds fast. You want it to have expression. They're getting so expressive, it's so nice. Choral reading, you're reading it together. Alternate reading, you read one line, they read one line, you read one page, they read one page, or they read it to you. Choice, you can give them a choice. This is a great choice thing. So that you can ask which way they want to read tonight. If there's 2 of them doing it because, you know, the younger brother and sister wants to listen to, they can have one line to do and they can have their public have fun with it. Reread it a lot, have fun. Some people do talent night where they get to pick a poem on Friday and they have popcorn and everybody does something, you know, in the family, the poem that they're doing at school. Closed caption TV for 1st grade, unbelievable. Research is, if you put those words at the bottom, they actually get better reading. You don't have to do anything, it's just down there. And you know you can't help looking at it after a while, we all do. And I wondered if I could start learning my French again. I haven't decided yet. Books on tape, especially where they have the words there. We have book flicks here at school on the website. These are things that you can get where they can look at the words, tumbled books. I think that's accessible for all the parents. These are on the UES website. They click on a book. There's all these great interactive activities, but then the words are at the bottom while they're scripting, and they can follow along while they read. And these are all really, really good things to help with fluency. Coming attractions. This is where they're going to be going in 3rd grade. Reading out loud, reading silently, listening to reading. Can they do all these 3 things and understand? Starting to get that more into the 3rd grade. So these are 3rd grade sorts of things. Fascinating. Can take a student, they can read out loud, tell me everything about the story, infer, make connections. I ask them to read it silently, nothing. So don't assume that they're reading silently and that they understand. So if they have 15 minutes of silent reading, make sure you ask them to tell you about what they read and keep them accountable, because this is a big step. We've got whisper phones for most of our students because we have found when they say it out loud, they're able to attend better for quite a bit longer than what any of us expect. So, reading out loud through 3rd grade, a little bit every night, really powerful. Don't let them off the book too soon, because again, a different part of their brain works. And it slows them down enough that they really are integrating all of those skills. I've been accountable for the reading silent part because it's trickier than you think. And the other part, some of them, and I'm not really good at this. I'm not that good. I'm not a good listener. I have to take notes. If I'm not taking notes, personally, I'll admit it, I can't always remember what someone says. Not everybody's good at listening to reading, to someone read and hearing, which means when the teachers are talking to the whole class, if they're not naturally good listeners where they can attend auditively, if they're visual learners and not hearing learners, they're missing spots of that class instruction. And so that's something to develop. How? By reading to your children. Stay a step of where their level is. If they're reading Junie B. Jones, maybe you're reading A Magic Tree House to them. Read a harder book so they're hearing the next level of complexity and sentence structure. And then ask them, really fast, what was this about tonight? What was that character like? What if that character hadn't broken his toe? How would the story have been different? What if the story took place in the desert and not in the jungle? The what ifs, really fun. What if the main character was a boy and not a girl? Ooh, that's one. Have fun with taking what's happening in the story and asking other questions there. Please look on our library website. Not only does Ms. Galiso have these wonderful Kindle books and book flips, she has a place where you can type in, and you'll get it from the NWEA scores, your child's lexile and what they like to read, matches it up, and says the books we have in our library. So you can play around with it. I don't have anything I can read. Come up with a book list. They can bring it to school, and the next round when they turn books in, she can have a few of these for them to choose from. That's at their level of difficulty. You have to still check, and that's with their interests. And this is, as far as I know, she's unique in our corporation. It's this incredible resource. There's lots of things on the website, and I think this video will be there, either on this website or library website or the New School website.
University School.
University School website, so that'll be on here as well. And 3rd grade I read. This is in 3rd grade in the state of Indiana. In an effort to make sure our students are ready to graduate, they have an exam that the students have to pass. If they do not, and this isn't, there's 2 kinds of tests, just for you to know. NWEA, which is what they just finished taking. That kind of test is fascinating because it's a SMART test. So they'll read a passage or do something. If they do well on it, they get a harder one. Not so well, they get an easier one. And it keeps giving them things until it figures out exactly what they can do. We use this as teachers to help us teach. We get the results back almost instantly. The I-step is a test to make sure they are above a bottom line. It's not as hard. So we want to make sure that they can get this level of accuracy on the I-step. Or, I'm sorry, I read test. In 3rd grade, we're working very hard to make sure our students have passed that. They worked hard in kindergarten, they worked hard in 1st grade, they worked hard in 2nd grade, and 3rd grade, anyone we're worried about is receiving one-on-one tutoring in school. So we really want to make sure they pass. If they don't pass this test, they go to summer school that summer, and they loved summer school. They were asking if their friends could come. So they actually, it's not called summer school, it's called summer reading camp. They loved it. It's really powerful. Every student in the school passed. And so that's another place where we can take the test. If they don't pass, and they do have to take the test, there's no way out, every school in Indiana is taking it. So moving schools, and, it's everywhere. Then they stay in 3rd grade reading for the next year. And we haven't had that issue yet because everybody's passed. And that is our goal. Everybody is going. But that's what this is, and know that it's extremely high stakes. And you have the one summer school to try to pass it and take it again at that point. So that's what this is, in case you weren't sure. If you want to find out sample questions on the iRead, you can follow it on your handout. And this, I just redid this, so I think it's correct. It changes every year, but it goes through our MCCSC site, and this will take you to the Department of Education site. I know you can read this, and you have to go through about 15,000 steps, but eventually you will get to these cut score performance level descriptors. I don't know why they don't say sample test. Oh, here. There it is, item sampling, and that's what you're looking for. So this will take you to the steps if you want to see what kind of questions to expect on there. What are we doing? We provide powerful classroom instruction by highly trained professional educators, supporting educators in their quest for excellence through focused professional development and support within the school corporation. We have a literacy coach and 3 preventionists who are all certified teachers. They're working in small groups and individually. They are phenomenal. We are extremely fortunate to have them. They have their 30 minutes of charge time, these targeted small group instruction. We know we want them to have these 12 things, or 15, whatever's on the report card. They really must have these things solid, and a lot more, but these things solid go on to the next grade, and we're really making sure in these small groups that that happens, and that it's accountable, and that we know they've got it. High levels of collaboration. Our late Wednesdays, I know it's hard for families sometimes. Thankfully, we have the free childcare now, so that's at least in place. In the morning, this is the core of how we can talk about what we're doing so that we really know every child has it, and we're all working together. It's not just one teacher with a child. It's the whole team of kindergartners, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, and my team, and Mrs. Davis, and Mrs. Eno. We are all collaborating for that grade level, each child's family. And we can't do that without that time. We could actually use twice as much time, but we won't ask. Intervention teams that coordinate the learning and provide additional support for at-risk students. They're getting one-on-one instruction. In the upper grades, they're pushing into the classrooms. I'm going into the classrooms and making sure that's happening. Really monitor their progress. It's not guesswork, we know. And lots of summer, it's the Summer Institute that we had this summer, which is the summer school based on Tammy's Institute. Lots more. And February 19th, we'll do another session on writing as well. And it'll probably be K through 6, so you'll get to see the whole thing. So right now, I think we can break up maybe in small groups. And we have a good 10, 15 minutes before the next group comes in. So if we could have Ms. Burkhart. Ms. Burkhart, raise your hand, sorry. Sorry. She's having a serious conversation. Could I have those parents who are interested in talking with a kindergarten teacher to maybe come up to this part of the room? And those parents interested in talking to a 1st grade teacher, and a 2nd grade team with Ms. Calvin, Ms. Administrator, at this grade table, 2nd grade. And then Ms. Wiggins will be here next time for 3rd grade, but I will talk with some of the teachers or the parents of 3rd graders, and I'll meet you back in the group. Thank you all for coming. I didn't get questions, so that was my fault. So come by and ask me questions. I will be better than Third grade? Yes.